Get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Rossi and Rock of Mine on the only podcast that I'll hear that won't make me wanna rip off my ears. Oh, the Rock Show, the Rock Show, the Rock Show, the Rock Show, the Rock Show. The Rock Show, oh, I want the Rock Show. The Rock Show, 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 the Rock Show.
Hello, people. Welcome to another exciting show of The Rock Show. This is episode 180. 180 of these, Mike. We're down to like 20 more before we reach 200.
I know.
And
it's been 4 years of this.
Yeah, wow. Has it been that long?
Yeah, March 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So today we have a very special show. We're talking about Terry Reid.
Yeah,
Not
Terry
Reid, but Terry Reid.
Terry Reid. Right. Well, what can I say about Terry Reid? The guy is, a lot of people may not have heard of him, but people in the music business have a lot of respect for the guy. He has a large cult following. He's a British guitar player, singer, songwriter. He's been around for, like 60 years now. Okay. Very influential, especially in the 60s and 70s, to British blues, British rock. You know, and I mean, one of his biggest claims to fame is kind of like strange because it's what he didn't do as a musician. Okay. Terry Reid was supposed to be the singer of Led Zeppelin. Wow. And he actually turned it down, and I'll get into that story with more detail. But you might think that was a mistake. I don't think he does. And Robert Plant has even said that he should have been the singer. So, I mean, it's, it's kind of funny. But he has a large cult following. By the time this show is up, he would have done another show here in New York City, which I might be attending, hopefully. He's just somebody that I think, if you're interested in rock and roll and the roots of it and stuff, he's somebody that you have to pay attention to. So, without further ado, let's get into it, right?
Yeah, let's start with his humble beginnings.
Right. Now, he was born Terence James Reid on November 13th, 1949. It was in the Huntingdon Shire section of England, which is about 50 miles north of London. After leaving school at the age of 15, he joined the instrumental band called Peter J and the Jaywalkers. Okay. Yeah. And Peter J spotted him, actually. Peter J was the drummer of the band. And he spotted him playing for a local band called the Red Beats at the time that he was in, and asked him to join. The Jaywalkers had just had some success 2 years earlier with a song called Can Can 62, which was kind of like I mean, the typical Can Can song. But it was done right. But it was done, rock and roll style, produced by the infamous Joe Meek of also known as the British Phil Spector in some ways. We may be doing a show on him soon too as well. They were basically an instrumental band, Peter J and the Jaywalkers. And then Terry joined up. He replaced the guitar player and he joined up. Now, he got more public attention in 1966 with the band when they were asked to support the Rolling Stones on a UK tour. Okay. It was a tour of about 23 shows from September to October of 66.
Wow.
Quite a few other people were on this bill. You had Ike and Tina Turner. And you also had the Yardbirds on some of these gigs as well, these 23 shows. So it was quite a showcase for him and the Jaywalkers. People were starting to notice this like amazing guitar player that could also sing too. I think by 66, they had gotten into like some songs with vocals on them and things like that as well. I'm pretty sure. Now, there was a concert at the Royal Albert Hall that Graham Nash of the Hollies became friends with Reid and suggested that the Jaywalkers sign up with the UK version of Columbia Records, which was actually a division of EMI, to record with. He had a producer named John Burgess who had worked with Freddie and the Dreamers and Manfred Mann and a few other acts. Now, they did sign with Columbia, and their first single was called The Hand Don't Fit the Glove. And it was a very soul-inspired kind of song with Terry singing. He has a very soulful voice. It became a minor hit.
Created the OJ. The glove don't fit. I never even knew that.
Yeah,
that
he
was
right.
That.
He was predicting the OJs 25 years earlier.
Johnny Cochran was a fan.
Yeah. The hand don't fit the glove.
And don't fit the glove.
It was a minor UK hit in 1967, but what was happening is by the time it started to get a little steam, the band was breaking up. That was the end of it. Now, Terry Reid came to the attention of producer Mickey Most, who became his manager and was partnered with Peter Grant of future Led Zeppelin fame. Okay. His first single with Mickey Most was a song called Better by Far. It became a favorite kind of on the radio. It got some airplay, but the full album, which was called Bang Bang, You're Terry Reid, failed commercially. It didn't do well. In 68, Terry went on a U.S. tour with Cream, and that did a lot to raise his profile as a musician and guitar player, songwriter, all that. He was accompanied by organist Peter Solly and drummer Keith Webb. The last show of the tour, which was at the Miami Pop Festival, garnered a lot of positive reviews for Terry Reid. He got the attention of the American music press, and they were starting to write about him. Now, Reid's song, a song called Without Expression, that appeared on the album Bang Bang, You're Terry Reid, was written when Terry was 14 years old. It was recorded later, not too long after, by the Hollies in 68. And then it wasn't called Without Expression. It was called A Man with No Expression when they recorded it. Later in 69, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Graham Nash, if you remember from the Hollies, joined Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and recorded it as a song called Horses Through a Rainstorm. Same song, just a different title. And it was supposed to be on the album Deja Vu, which was a smash for them, But it was replaced last minute by the Stephen Stills song Carry On. So it didn't make that album. It would be released much later on like a deluxe set that came out of Deja Vu. They would put it on there. Now, REO Speedwagon, recorded the song Without Expression in 1973. It was called Without Expression, Don't Be the Man, in parentheses. And also, John Mellencamp recorded it for his greatest hits album, The Best That I Could Do, 78 to 88. Jimmy Page, at the time, was in the Yardbirds and was also managed by Peter Grant. Now, he became very interested in Reid's work. And when the Yardbirds were disbanded, and then he put together what was called the New Yardbirds, which very quickly would morph into Led Zeppelin. We've done shows on this. He asked Terry Reid if he would, be part of the band and be the lead vocalist. What was happening was, Yeah, I mean, if you look back at what that meant, that's huge. Okay, but at the time, nobody knew the New Yardbirds were going to turn into anything. Okay,
Yeah.
but Jimmy Page was a well-respected sessions musician who spent a year and a half or so in the Yardbirds before this happened. Well-respected musician, but he's not, he wasn't the Jimmy Page he is today. So there was no way of knowing what was going to happen. And Terry Reid had actually committed to 2 U.S. tours at the time. One with the Stones, opening for them, and one opening for Cream again. Okay, so he said to Jimmy, he said, listen, I'll work with you if you can compensate me on what I'm going to lose on these 2 tours. And I also want you to give Keith Richards a phone call and explain what this is all about, basically, why I can't be part of the Stones tour. I mean, if you think about it, the Stones at that time were huge. They were just coming back to America, and he was going to be part of that. So, he kind of felt like, all right, I'll take this chance, but I got to be compensated. Well, Page couldn't do that. He wasn't in a position to do it. So it never happened. And Jimmy Page would, at Reid's suggestion, look up Robert Plant, okay, who had been in a group called Band of Joy. And he also suggested John Bonham to Jimmy as well, who was also in that band. If you think about that, and the fact that Jimmy Page actually went with those 2 other guys, John Paul Jones on bass was another guy he knew as a session musician. So really, Terry Reid is responsible for putting together Led Zeppelin.
Pretty much.
I think so. I would give him credit for that. So
he pretty much he probably led everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, he said, check out this Band of Joy, and you got John Bonham and Robert Plant, and I think he already had John Paul Jones, so that was the band right there. Interestingly enough, Reid also rejected an offer from Ritchie Blackmore to replace the departing Rod Evans of Deep Purple.
Wow.
So he could have been in Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin. And he didn't do it.
Band. What happened to, why does this guy always say no to stuff? He just didn't have the time, or?
Well, he was committed to these 2 U.S. tours. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, hindsight is 20/20. Nobody knew what was going to materialize had he joined the New Yardbirds. Okay. Deep Purple, they were big. He just didn't want to join them, I guess. He had.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. He had his own career that he was really trying to get going, and he just didn't want to be part of a band atmosphere. I think that's the impression I get.
That's what I'm getting too.
Yeah, like he just likes to be on his own, control his own music, and all that.
His own destiny. That makes sense.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. So, in 1969, Reid supported British tours. Most notably, was with Jethro Tull and Fleetwood Mac. Very early Fleetwood Mac. Reid, Solly, and Webb toured with the Stones on their 69 American tour. However, he was not at the infamous Rolling Stones Altamont show where, they had the murder, the Hells Angels, all that stuff. Yeah. He was not at that show in December on the West Coast. In December of 69, Reid had a falling out with producer Mickey Most, who wanted Reid to become a pop ballad singer. Okay, Mickey Most was starting to get into this pop, rock and roll pop kind of sensibilities. Then he would go on to produce
before, right?
Yeah, with the Sweet and stuff like that.
Yeah, the name came up. I said, "Why do I know this?" That don't make sense. It's coming to me.
Yeah. And he was a well-to-do, well-respected producer, but he had a falling out with him because he wanted to take Terry Reid in this pop direction, and sing ballad type stuff, which he really, he sang his fair share of slow songs, but he didn't want to be that kind of singer. He decided while in litigation with Mickey Most, because they ended up going to court. He decided to concentrate on live performances. He played more shows with the Stones, including Mick Jagger and Bianca Jagger's wedding in St. Tropez in 1971. He was unable to record because he was in litigation with Mickey Most, so he worked mostly in the U.S. with the occasional live show in the U.K. during this period. Now, he took part at an Isle of Wight festival in 1970, also the Atlanta International Pop Festival, and was filmed at the Glastonbury Festival in 1971. You can see that footage on YouTube. That same year, he was signed by Ahmet Ertegun of Atlantic Records, with his band consisting of David Lindley, Lee Miles, and Alan White. They began recording in the UK, but they later switched to the United States. Alan White left to join Yes, and Lindley would leave to go work with Jackson Browne on a tour. However, Lee Miles would remain with him and be a loyal sidekick for many years to come after that. Other musicians on this album, which would be called River, included Conrad Isidore on drums and Willie Bobo on percussion, produced by Terry Reid himself and engineered by Tom Dowd and mixed by Eddie Offord. This third album was released in 1973 and received favorable reviews, but failed commercially. Didn't do too good. These recording sessions...
Right, he's getting great reviews, but none of the albums they all failed so far.
Yeah, they really. I don't know what it is with him in this period. I think he was known as a great live act, but it didn't translate to sales. I think that's where
he should have done a live album.
Oh, well, he does eventually. Okay, he does. Okay,
you know what?
But yeah, but you know, I think that it wasn't translating into record sales, unfortunately. Not really sure why. Sometimes bands fall into this. It's just a weird thing. So,
well, Mike, you ever see a guy that's a really good performer, like you see him, but then you listen to the album and it's like, it's not the same thing. That's probably what he's suffering for. It's better. He's a live band, not a guy that you hear on the radio.
You know, some people, I guess one band I could think of off the top of my head from years ago was like the Grateful Dead. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, really just known for their live shows. I mean, they're known for certain albums as well, but really, I think the experience with the Dead was a live show. Okay.
It was a live show.
Yeah, you know, and that whole experience. And I think Terry Reid was kind of like a smaller version of that. At least at this period, he wasn't selling a lot of records, but he was well respected in the industry. So he kind of fit this little niche that he could make his money touring and kind of put out these albums, but not have to worry too much about sales. Now, these recording sessions for River were very extensive. He had a lot of sessions, a lot of songs, and they came out in 2016 as all these sessions together in a deluxe set called The Other Side of the River. It's cool to check it out. Now, over the next decade, Reid would switch labels a lot, okay, often looking for kind of like a winning combination. And finally, an album called Seed of Memory was released by ABC Records in 1976. It was produced by his old friend Graham Nash, okay? And to me, it's one of his finest albums, which included probably his most well-known songs. To Be Treated is a song, To Be Treated Right, I'm sorry. And Brave Awakening, okay, it's another great tune that's on that album. Now, the label ABC actually went bankrupt the week this album was released, okay, which actually had, just as a side note, it had a big effect in the industry. Around the same time the Ramones were on Sire, they released their first album in 76, and it was distributed by ABC, and they went under. Okay.
Wow.
So it had effect on distributing that album as well. But ABC was a label that went bankrupt that week. Now, Rogue Waves would be his next record, and it was produced by Chris Kimsey for Capitol Records this time in 1979. It was here that Reid retired from his solo career for a while, starting in 1981. He wanted to concentrate on session work, and he appeared on albums by Don Henley, Jackson Browne, and Bonnie Raitt. And he would do this pretty much through the next 10 years or so. In 1991, he would return to his career with producer Trevor Horn, if you remember him from the Buggles, okay, for the album called The Driver on WEA Records. The album featured a cover of Gimme Some Lovin', which also appeared in the Tom Cruise movie Days of Thunder on that soundtrack.
Wow.
Now, so that was a big thing for him to be on that soundtrack. Okay. It's around this time in the early 90s that he was starting to get recognized more within the industry. People that were kind of like, in charge of things were starting to recognize him finally as a great musician. Yeah. And people will, he had done great session work with a lot of big time people for 10 years prior, even that. And he was already 20 years in the game when he started that. So he really hung on and really got a name for himself by this time. Now, in the 90s, he toured the U.S. and Hong Kong with ex-Rolling Stone member Mick Taylor. He put together, an informal group in March of 1993 calling themselves The Flew. Okay, FLEW. Members included Terry Reid, Joe Walsh, Nicky Hopkins, Rick Rosas, and Phil Jones. They ended up doing one show, okay, at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. This was Nicky Hopkins' last public performance before his passing. All right. Nicky Hopkins, the great piano player, worked with the Stones and many others. Great person that we may do a show on one day soon. Very important person. There's actually, I think, a documentary in the making right now about him as well. So
nice.
Keep an eye out for that. In late 2002, Reid returned to the UK with longtime bassist Lee Miles in tow for 3 shows at the WOMAD Festival near Reading in England. It was his first live show in years, okay? And in 2005, he returned again for London shows at the 100 Club, Ronnie Scott's venue, okay? And one of these venues even billed him as the man with the hell of a story to tell, okay?
That's a great name.
Which is true, aptly titled. Now, this began a yearly run of UK shows that continue to this day. For appearances at festivals, at the London shows, Reid was in a full band, okay, and other venues he played include the Jazz Cafe, the Borderline, and Dingwalls, the famous Dingwalls.
Yeah.
Since 2009, Reid's favorite London venue has been Ronnie Scott's, okay, and he's had many residencies there, playing for several nights in a row. In 2012, his live album called Live in London was recorded at Ronnie Scott's and featured no overdubs, no remixes. It was just recorded and released raw, okay, which was great. And between 2002 and 2012, Reid played the Glastonbury Festival several times and many other festivals as well, including the one at the Isle of Wight and the Rhythm Festival, okay? Reid's UK gigs often attracted many of the British musicians who would often jam with him on stage. Now, during this period, EMI produced the Super Lungs box set, which was a nickname for him, Super Lungs, okay? It was a set of his first 2 albums and all the sessions for them recorded between 1966 and 1970.
Wow.
Finally, Seed of Memory and River became available on CD at that time, and a new live album called Alive was released on Sanctuary Records. This live album had actually been available for some time, okay? Reid was, Reid had recorded it himself and had made about 200 copies that he used to hawk at shows, in particular the WOMAD 2002 festival. So that was an old show, but he put it out officially, and it did very well. Around this time, he began a residency at The Joint in Los Angeles. This became known as Big Mondays, and it ran for 4 years with many friends dropping in to join. People like Robert Plant, Keith Richards, Bobby Womack, Roger Daltrey, Eric Burden, and also our friend Roxanne Fontana has seen him many times at that spot in LA.
Wow.
Okay, she was telling me that recently. Now, his song Dean from the River album, okay, was used in the film The Criminal, released in 2001. In 2003, he teamed up with that film's producer, Chris Johnson, who convinced Terry Reid to tour the U.S. and the U.K. more often. He became Reid's business advisor, and he kind of turned his career around for the better. He started booking tours, and worked on releasing his back catalog of music, and got 3 songs: Seed of Memory, To Be Treated Right, and Brave Awakening in the Rob Zombie movie, The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember I don't know if you remember those 3 songs that kind of promptly shown in the film. This opened up Reid to a whole new audience being on that soundtrack. Okay. I knew who he was before that. I knew about Seed of Memory. But when I got that soundtrack, which is an excellent soundtrack, The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
It got me thinking about Terry Reid, and I kind of became a fan again after that. Now, since that time, his career has included songs in other films and larger US and UK tours where he still remains very popular. At the time of shooting this, like I said, he's kind of on like a New York tour. He's playing Woodstock, he's playing New Jersey, he's playing the Cutting Room in New York City, a few other places, I think, in the Northeast. So Go to terryreid.com. He's got all that up. Now, while older artists like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page still sing the praises of Terry Reid, newer generation people like Jack White from the White Stripes, he's recorded some of his music as well with his band, the Raconteurs. Now, as of this podcast, like I said, he's playing some shows. I think everybody should go out and check him out. He's about 80. He's in his 80s right now. I think he's about 80. What year was he born? He's not 80 yet. He's 74. He's about 74. Yeah.
Yeah, he was born in 49.
Yeah. So check him out. I think his name has come up with a lot of people that I've been friends with on Facebook over the years, and say, you should do a show on Terry Reid. Terry Reid's great. And I'm glad we finally did this. He's just one of these people that, not totally well known, but he's had this amazing career. And of course, he's kind of known for what he didn't do, joining Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. But check this out, Mike. He's still touring. Think about it. He's still playing music and
his own
making a
life.
living out of it. So,
how
bad can it be?
Deep respect for him. Deep respect for him. So that's all I got for you today, Mr. Rossi. Terry Reid.
Right, Mike. So how can people reach you if they want to ask you a question about the show or a question about music? What's the best way to reach you?
I'm all over social media. You can find me on Facebook under Rocko Mike. They won't let me be Rocko Mike. We also have the Facebook, the Rock Show podcast group page on Facebook, which is growing by leaps and bounds every week, doing very well. I post a lot of music on there. A lot of other people do. It's a lot of fun. I'm on Instagram as Rocker Mike 212. I'm on Twitter as Rocker Mike 212. I am on MeWe as Rocker Mike, Clout Hub as Rocker Mike, Truth Social, and Getter as Rocker Mike. Paula does not exist anymore. Did you hear about that?
Oh, what happened to Paula?
Paula got taken down by their new owners. I was Rocker Mike on there as well. It's down. You can't post on it. They have new owners that are like figuring out what to do with it. They didn't like the old format. Kanye West was supposed to buy Parler, but that never happened. Okay. And next week, we're going to talk about that guy right there we just showed, George Jones, right? That's going to be up soon, right?
Yeah, that'll be up soon.
That's in the May shows. So by the time this is up, that's already been up.
Yeah, it will be up.
So where can we find you, Rob?
And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and on the Rock of Mike and Rob fan page on Facebook. So go there because it keeps growing. We're closing into 2,000
the Rock Show group page.
Yeah, the Rock Show group page. So it's doing good, and pretty much that's a page that we only talk about music, nothing else, just music. That's what we want, and it's a pretty good page. The community is pretty good so far doing that.
Yeah. Everybody's keeping to the rules and just having a good time on that. I like it.
Yeah, have a good time. All right, man. So people, remember, don't get drunk.
Get lumped up.
We'll see you next week.
Take care, people.
I wanna get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Rossi and Rock'n'Mike on the only podcast that I'll hear. That won't make me wanna rip off my ear.